ぞ。恐竜戦隊のパワーを見せてやる。合体だ!
Hello everyone, Via here. In this video we're going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy United Dino King box set. So here are the figures in their dinosaur modes, but before we take a look at that, we're going to take a look at the packaging. I've been wanting to phase out these packaging sections from reviews, but this one was too pretty to not take a quick look at. So we've got big picture of Dino King there, as well as individual portraits for each member of the Dino Force next to a window. These are actual plastic windows. Unfortunately, the thing that would have made this cherry on top is if they were in a tray or something, but no, they are just tied in there in those windows, so you can't really put them back in, but that's fine. On the top here, we have pictures of all of the different robots, including the combined mode. On the bottom, we don't have anything. On the sides, those kind of same pictures on both sides. And on the back, we have the Legacy United artwork. We have some tech specs that I might actually cut out and save just because that's kind of neat. And all of the figures there in both modes with step counts for each of them. So that's it for the box. Let's take a look at the figures. I want to go through these first just because we're going to take a look at them individually when we get to like each of the individual figures. But this is all of the accessories that this set comes with. This is all stuff minus this sword, this little white sword here, that the original Volcanicus version of this set did not come with. So this is all brand new for this set, and I just wanted to get a spread so you can see how much more we're getting with these figures than the other version. But we'll take a look at each of them individually when we actually get to the figures that they correspond to, because they can each store some figures. First, we're going to start with Kaku Ryu. So Kaku Ryu here is the leader of the Dino Force, and you can see he is a repaint of Dinobot. The Dinobot. I can't remember why am I blanking on the Dinobot? It'll be on screen. I forget. Doesn't matter. Here he is in his Triceratops mode. And you can see completely new paint scheme compared to Volcanicus, and that's why I was much more attracted to this set, not only because of my love of Japanese G1 and Victory, but also just the original Volcanicus team looked so bland because they were all gray. It's like there was zero color breakup on those figures, so it's really nice that these figures actually have some color. You can see most of this figure is going to be this kind of like yellowy color. You got some dark plastic there on the front legs, red on the frill and the eyes. Bit of this, like, it almost looks like silver. It's like a pearly kind of silver with some more darkness here. And this bit of blue here is very obviously the combined mode head that stores back there. You can see underside, we got, you know, robot parts, but that's fine. It's just a core. I'm only going to use one comparison for these guys. Here is Rat Trap. You know, they're pretty standard core sized. If you've seen the core Dinobots, these are the same molds for the most part, just with some new heads. So we'll do... you already saw the dinosaur comparisons with everybody else, so I'm going to go through those at the end. Articulation on these isn't anything to write home about. You can see the legs kick forward and back. These front legs move in and out. These back legs can also kick forward and back. And his mouth can technically open, but you're just going to reveal robot head in there, so we're not going to do that. So for this guy's weapons, he actually has quite a bit going on. You're going to take this blade piece, this connector piece, this gun, and this little silver gun. I'm going to go by what's in the instructions first and foremost, and we'll talk a little later about some of the things I like to change, because these all use very standard ports, so you can kind of mix and match them however you like. We'll take a quick look at some of the details on these. These look quite nice for being completely new pieces for this set. I quite like how they look, and it's nice to give this set some actual weaponry instead of nothing like Volcanicus had. So what you're going to do with this is, I'm going to take this off just for making this easier. You're going to open up the legs, open up this back piece like this, fold the legs back in, and put the tail back on, like that. That reveals a port at the top. And the way that the instructions tell you to do this is taking this piece here, and you can see on this side we have big port, on this side little port, and then a big port on top. You're actually going to take the blade here and peg it in sideways like this. Silver gun goes up top, and then this gun, there is a little peg on the side there that is going to peg into that side, and you peg this on top like this, and this acts as a little turret. I don't tend to do this, but if you want, a little bit of extra play feature, that is a thing, and it can spin because it's on a peg, and this gun can raise up and down. So you have a little bit of play value there, which I guess is pretty cool. It's a nice use of some of the weapons. Now we're going to get into his transformation. So first off, you want to take the tail and unpeg it, put that to the side, bring these legs back like this. We're going to flip the robot legs out, and then I like to just take these legs and just kind of put them forward like this, and you can split it. Come to the back here and open this section up. Take the front legs, bring them up, and rotate them down, and you can see there's your robot mode hands. Bring it down like that, and the last step, take the mouth and open it up. And there you have Kakuryu in his robot mode. And again, just like with the Dino modes, I think even though the only real difference is the head sculpt, I do think this does look better than the actual Dinobots that these were based on. And they just have so much more color, and I just like how they look quite a bit more. This mold does have the proportional issues of having far too short of arms, but I do like that they have a little bit of extra paint on there. This set has a ton of paint on it, which I really like. It has a lot more paint than those Dinobots, and that's part of where the extra value, we'll talk about the price a little bit later, but with all those accessories and the extra paint is where that extra money that you're paying is coming in. And I do think it's worth it, and I like the new heads as well. I think the head sculpt looks really good. Not a big fan of it, this entire piece being the head sculpt, but that's just kind of how the Dinobots worked, so that's how this has to work. But the actual head sculpt itself, ignoring that kibble, does look quite good. You can see we got some red and a Decepticon symbol there. And yeah, a lot of this detail is going to be the same as what we saw in the Beast mode, so I'm not going to go too in-depth on it. For articulation, we do have, it is a ball joint, but it is very limited. It kind of just goes side to side, not that much tilting at all. Shoulders can rotate. They can move out to the side all the way. No elbows, which is a big problem with a lot of these figures. No elbow joints. This guy, though, does have a waist swivel, and that is dedicated. You don't even need that for transformation at all. Hips are on ball joints. They kick forward and back and out to the side, and the knees are on ball joints that can spin, and they can bend and do all that. And he doesn't have any trouble standing because his feet are nice and big, but if you did have any trouble standing, you could put these legs to the back if you want to get him in a more dynamic pose that needs the extra kind of heel support. That is an option. So this guy can use the same weapons as before. So again, I'm going off of what the instructions say to do. I tend to do it a little bit differently, but I want to show what the instructions say, so we'll do that. So the instructions show you taking this piece and pegging it in on the back here. So this is just storage. You can just kind of have that stored. He can also hold this, though. This is something that I wanted to do. He does have a peg here that he can hold in his hand like this. So I'll talk about that again in a second, but I'll show, again, just what the instructions say. So it's nice that it can store on the back there. And then for the rest of this, the instructions just say to do this, rotate this around and point that back, and give him this as an axe, like this. And you can give him this gun. I'm dropping it. Where'd it go? There it is. Give him this gun like that. And so that's going to be his weapons. And again, just giving these guys some weapons makes them feel so much more kind of complete as figures than the Volcanicus crew did. And he does look really cool. So, love Kakuryu. I think he's great. But we've got 5 more to do, so let's get a move on. Next up is probably the weakest of the set. This is Ryu. So Ryu here is a sludge retool, repaint. And, he does share a lot of the problems of him with his weird kind of proportioned legs. But at least he does have that extra gold paint. He's mostly done in this kind of weird milky plastic, which looks good on some of the other ones, not so much on him. Not a huge fan of that. He also has paint at the bottom of his feet, so be careful like sliding him around because you might scratch that up. But yeah, head sculpt again is decent. It's just the Dinobot again. I know these are retools, and this is kind of the only way we're going to get these characters in the main line, but it would have been nice if they looked a bit more organic to look like their dino shells. That would have been quite nice, but Dinobot retools, it's just kind of how it is. For accessories, he actually gets both of the feet, and this is kind of cool. They added this angled peg here onto the back, and there are these ports here that are at an angle off the back of the thighs. So you peg these in like this, and they have missiles molded in and painted at the back. It's really nice that they actually painted those in. I love that. And he's got giant missile pods that kind of weigh him back a lot. He's not even standing on his front legs at that point. But that's pretty cool that you have somewhere for them to go in the dinosaur mode. I quite like that. Again, we'll throw in Rat Trap here. Just again, these are all roughly the same size. They're pretty standard core sized, but yeah. Transformation is, again, kind of weak on this one, but he's not awful. You take the head and unpeg it and just kind of bring it down most of the way. Take his tail and pull that out. And you can kind of pull his hands up. And that gives you room to fold this down like this. You want to split his arms and pull the shoulders to the outside like that. You can take his waist and rotate it and split his legs. Oh, and then you can fold that onto his back. Now, this guy, this mold has been pretty infamous since it came out as being awful. And you'll see with how his legs work here. I'll actually go through it since I didn't review Sludge. But you can see new head sculpt, which is nice. We'll start with positives. The new head sculpt is really nice. I quite dig it. It's, you know, it looks like Ryu. These guys represent the characters pretty well, even if they're not 100% accurate. No paint on the chest. That would have been nice. He does have a Decepticon logo, but some paint would have done good to break up all that white on his chest. On his arms, he does have a little bit of extra paint there in the shoulders. Some paint there on the skirt piece and his very weird looking legs. So articulation, the head can rotate, which is nice. And his head's actually kind of unimpeded, unlike Kakuryu. His shoulders are ball jointed, so they can spin around. They can move out to the side that far. No elbows. Again, this skirt piece can flip forward, and his hips actually, you can see where his legs are kind of meant to meet here. How this detail is meant to be the thigh, and then it goes down into his knee. But he does have all this extra stuff on the side, and that's where the articulation is, because it's for combine mode. So his hip kicks forward, kind of. And it goes back. The thigh swivels on the outside, so if you move it too much, it kind of looks out of whack. And then the knee joint is a ball joint that's right there. It's not even that he can't pose, it just feels really weird. Like, you can kind of do it if you just, like, hide where the weirdness is. Like, his legs can move, but it's just not the best feeling. Oh, and he does have a waist swivel. My fault. That helps completely. He does have a waist joint. Like I said, it's not even that he can't pose. It's just that he poses strange. And that's just it. He's odd. He's an odd figure. But he does have his weapons that may help him a little bit. On the underside of these pieces, there are these pegs that you can flip out. And these pegs can peg in onto these holes here on the outside of his arms. So you can peg that in and have it kind of arm mounted like that. Or you also have the option of this little peg here on the bottom. And I'm realizing I should have flipped them, but whatever. That can peg into his hand. And they're flat enough that they go all the way down. So either way works, and you can have him pose just like that. He even holds a pose pretty well. So he's not awful. He's definitely the worst of the set, but I really don't think he's that bad. His weapons do help, and I think, you know, once you get used to his posing, you can make him look somewhat cool. But overall, probably the weakest of the set, but definitely necessary for the combined mode. And you'll see why he kind of is built so weird in a little bit. Next up is Guy Ryu. This guy was purpose-built for this set. I mean, he was a new addition to the Dinobots when it came to Volcanicus, but Dairyu obviously was made, this mold was made for Dairyu, clearly. And he is an Ankylosaurus, which is a really cool dinosaur. And the sculpting looks really nice. I love how kind of wide he feels and all these spikes on top. His tail is a bit longer than the Dinobot, who I also can't remember the name of, and I'll put it on screen, because this is a new piece. He does have new hand pieces for combined mode, and because his hand piece becomes his tail, he does get a new piece, which actually adds to his articulation, which we'll go for in a little bit. Head sculpt is really nice, and I like that red eye. It's all painted green. His colors are gorgeous, honestly. The dark green, even if the plastic and the paint really don't even try to match at all, work with that dark gray, and he just looks really cool, in my opinion. He does have a bit of an underbelly here that kind of is the same height as his feet, which is kind of funny, but, you know, he sits and he looks like a dinosaur. He looks really cool. I really, really like him. So this guy actually doesn't get any of the accessories. His only accessory is his tail, so we'll just go right into his articulation here. Nothing at the head, but his little front legs can kick forward that far and back that far, and his rear legs can't kick forward any more than this, but they can move back. The tail, because it's pegged on, can rotate if you want. It has an upward joint right there. I don't know if you want to use that. It can move like that, and it does swivel. So this is obviously a hand, but, you know, you can kind of just like play pretend and try not to focus on that. And it does have that little bit of articulation that you can kind of, I don't know, make some poses maybe. I don't know. Posing dinosaurs is not my forte, and these guys don't have enough posability to make it easy for me. But, real quick, I almost forgot to do our rat comparison. He is a rat. Rat out of the way. Transformation on this guy is really simple, just like the rest of them. You rip the tail off and spin the hand around. Put that to the side. You can take his rear legs here and they flip up, and you can see they tab in right up at the top. Kind of push his front legs forward a bunch and flip out his robot legs. Split them. Take his head and dip it back. Split the arms open and just kind of straighten those shoulder hinges out. And spin his waist around. And here you have Guy Ryu in his robot mode. And again, his accessory is his tail, which has a little handle on it that he can hold in his hand. And there we go. Not the most exciting weapon, but, you know, it works. It's fine. And again, his new head sculpt looks really cool. And I love that they actually gave these guys different expressions. I love Dairyu's little smirk. The other two had pretty stoic faces, and this guy has his little smirk, so they actually have different expressions. And this expression works for the Dino Force, because if you remember from Victory, they're very comedic characters, and so I like when the figures reflect that a little bit. I feel like so often we just see stoic expressions on every figure, even when it doesn't really fit. So when we get a more jokey character that has an expression to reflect that, it's really nice. And again, the new head sculpt overall, just like it's a really good head, and it's super accurate, and I love the smirk again. Head rotates. You can see we got paint detail on the chest. The arms are on ball joints. Again, no elbows, but we do have some green paint on there. They also have a butterfly joint if you want to use that at all. He does have a waist swivel for transformation. Hips are on ball joints again. Really all the same range as all the other guys, as well as his ball joints at his knees, which again can serve for rotation as well. So yeah, I think, and you can use this as a gun as well. I forgot to mention the fist has a little barrel on it, so if you want to use it as a gun, you can. I definitely prefer thinking of it as just like a beating stick, because this is meant to be your kind of Ankylosaurus tail guy, so I definitely prefer to think about it that way. But if you want to use it as a gun, that is your prerogative. You do have that option. And again, you know, they can't pull off the most dynamic poses ever, but you can do some stuff. You can give them a little bit of personality in their poses. So again, I think we have another winner here with Guy Ryu. I think he's really cool. But we got to move on. here we have probably my favorite of the set, Go Ryu. I really like this guy. He is our Grimlock alike. Of course, you can see that face is, he's the one that has the worst, I think, in terms of being just too recognizably Dinobot, because that is clearly unmistakably Grimlock. But, you know, done in this green and kind of milky white and a little bit of silver. I think he pulls off the transformation pretty cleanly. Of course, he does have the red there for his eyes. No paint really on this part of his chest at all. It's not till we get to his robot chest that we see some silver and a Decepticon badge. That kind of milky white plastic returns, but I think it looks a little better on this guy than it did on Ryu. Silver there on his little dino toes. On his back, these are his robot legs, obviously. Some of that pearly white plastic, as well as the tip of his tail, has a little bit of that gunmetal. This is a very obvious transformation again, but, you know, he does have a little bit of articulation here. His dino head can look up that far. He does have ball joints at his hips, as well as his feet can swivel. So that is him. He does also get a weapon here. He does have this little club piece that has some ports in it. And the way that you do this is this peg here, which I kind of have to untransform him to get it out, because it's just kind of hard to reach in there. But once you get that peg flipped out, you just take this and you can peg it in right there, and it kind of sits on top of his dino tail, just like that. So that is how you can store his weapon. And again, we'll bring in the rat. This guy stands up quite a bit more, so he's pretty tall. But again, these are all standard core size. So we're going to take the club off, and we'll do his transformation. First step is pulling off his tail piece, and we'll take his legs and fold them out straight like that, and split them. His dino legs become the robot arms by just simply rotating his feet to reveal his hands, like that. And we can split this top piece, and you have a couple options for this. You can leave them like this, so when you rotate this down, they'll be up a bit, or I prefer to actually rotate them so they are hanging down, and bringing them down like that. And then this peg you kind of have to flip separately, but you flip that in with the rest of the backpack, and you can give him his two weapons. So he does get his club, which he can hold in his hand, as well as his tail piece becomes a gun that he can hold in his hand. Just like that. And there he is in robot mode. And I quite like the robot mode. I think, like I said, he's probably my favorite of the set, despite still having some problems. He still doesn't have any elbows, but he does have a really nice head sculpt. Again, all of these have really nice head sculpts, so I'm just going to keep repeating myself, but I won't stop saying it until it's not true. And yeah, that's a really good head sculpt. I like that a lot. Again, we got that silver and Decepticon badge there on his chest. More of that milky white, but again, I really think it just works better on this guy. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because of the shade of green. Him having weapons, again, gives him way more personality than Grimlock had, especially that club. This thing Grimlock also had, but it's just kind of whatever. This is really cool. I like that a lot. He has a swivel at his head. Again, it doesn't go all the way around because of the size of his head and just the shaping of everything back here. It doesn't go all the way around, but you get enough ball joints there at the shoulder, as well as he kind of has this joint here if you want to use that at all. Swivel at his wrist, no elbows. He does have a waist swivel. They gave all these guys waist swivels, but no elbows. That's really strange. I don't know. Half of them don't even use it for the transformation at all. Hips are on ball joints again, as well as his knees are on ball joints. Although due to the shaping of his leg here, you can see they kind of rub right against it. So it's only when they're straight like that you're going to get any rotation out of them. But you do get a little bit. So his articulation is not the best, but I think his sculpting is really cool, and I like his head a lot. So yeah, really nice little fella. Next up is Yoku Ryu, who is the Swoop retool. He is a pterodactyl, and yeah, little guy. He has a lot of this milky white plastic. Him and our next fella has a lot of the milky plastic, but it's paired with this really nice blue that kind of offsets it, and I think it looks really cool. He has a standard swoop transformation of just flipping his legs up, so these are obviously his robot legs, which look a little goofy from the front, but hey, they tried to add some detail there with like some vent detailing to make them look like something. Head sculpt there is okay, but he's the one that I wish either had an opening mouth or some kind of head articulation, because he doesn't have either, and it makes his head look kind of not like his head, especially with how kind of gappy it is from the top and especially from the bottom as well. An opening mouth probably would have helped with this a little bit, but you know, whatever. On the bottom, you can see just his arms, and he does have this peg here, which is for his accessory, which I'm gonna call barely an accessory because it's just Dino King's other hand, and the entire this frame that goes with it. The way that you're meant to store this is by flipping this peg out, and you're supposed to peg it into that port there, like this, and it just kind of sits like that underneath him. I hate this. I think this isn't a very good accessory, and according to the instructions, this is his main weapon. So again, it has that little gun there, so you could think of it as that. I personally just leave this to the side, and I have something else that I do in robot mode with it, so we'll just kind of leave this to the side and pretend like we didn't have to mention that. But yeah, dinosaur mode, pretty good. Articulation-wise, it's all in the wings. He does have a little bit of up and down flappage at this joint here, as well as a little bit of motion here at this middle joint. So he does have some articulation, but unless you have some kind of stand to kind of clamp under him, you're not really getting anything too good when he's just laying there on the ground with the rat. That's who he's laying with. He's laying with the rat. But for transformation, you're going to take his legs here, and you're going to untab them here and flip them down like this. His wrists tab in to his hips there, so you can just pull the arms out, and then you can split the legs. Take the wings here, and there's a tab and a slot. You just fold them in half like this, and then just kind of angle them back a bit. Take his dinosaur head, fold it down over his chest, take his head, dip it up like that, and here you have Yoku Ryu in his robot mode. And I know a lot of people say he's their favorite in this set. He's not quite my favorite, but he does have the best articulation, which we'll get into in a second. I can't tell. I skipped out on Swoop. I can't tell if he has a new head or not. I'm going to put Swoop's head on the screen right next to it, and we'll determine in editing if he has a new head or not, because I can't tell. I haven't really paid that much attention to Swoop. He's not my favorite Dinobot, so I don't know. But the head overall is nice, whether it's new or not. It looks pretty good. Pretty neutral expression, but he does have his red eyes painted, as well as his little silver face. All of that blue is painted, which looks really nice. I think all the blue on this figure in general is painted. I think all on the chest is paint, and on the legs is paint as well. The head articulation is quite good. It's on a ball joint, and unlike the rest of them, it is very uninhibited. He can look up all the way. Let's get him there. All the way up, because of the cut in the back. But it can rotate, and it even has a little bit of side-to-side pivot, which I like. Shoulders are ball jointed, so they can rotate and they can move out. They're really tight. Elbows are ball jointed. Is he the first one to have elbows so far? I think he is. And they're ball jointed elbows, so they can also rotate, which is nice. He does have nice sculpted silver fists there. He does have a waist swivel, but the chest kind of gets in the way, so you have to move that. But he does have a waist swivel. The hips are ball jointed as well, so they can move all over the place. He has a dedicated thigh swivel, which is very interesting, as well as a hinge knee, which goes all the way. I mean, it folds up for transformation, so it goes all the way up. So he probably has the best articulation of the set. Unfortunately, according to the instructions, he can't utilize it because this is his only weapon. What they say to do is to take the fist and rotate it so that the gun barrel's on top, like that, and then use this as a handle. So you straighten his arm out because it's the only way he can hold this, and you peg it in, and that's his weapon. Yeah, that sucks. I really hate that. So what I usually do, actually, I'll show you this. This isn't in the instructions. This is via opinion time. I bring Kakuryu back in. Take this. I like to remove this piece and take the tail off. The tail has that peg on top. I peg this gun on top of the tail like this. And just kind of straighten out those barrels and have him holding that as a second gun. So he gets two guns. And then I just take this axe and I give it to Rokuryu. Or Yokuryu, sorry. And I like that way better. So yeah, I usually end up giving him this axe because I just like that quite a bit more, and I really don't think this is a terrible solution either. So that's what I usually do. That's how I display them when I want to have them individually with their weapons. Yeah, and I think this gives you much more posing options for like dynamic and cool poses than that other thing. Really, that piece is just kind of, I just leave that to the side. I'm not a big fan of that piece. It's good for combined mode, but for the individual guys, not so much. But that's it for Yokuryu. He's a really, really good figure. A lot of people's favorites in the set, and I see why. He's great. And last but not least, we have Doryu. Doryu is your Snarl alike. You can see he is also in that white and blue. He has yellow eyes instead of red, which is really cool. Little blue paint there. Again, a lot of the blue on this is painted. He actually has some blue plastic though, but a lot of this blue still is painted. All of the spines are painted. He's got painted feet, and his fists are on the back of his rear legs. Big hinge right there, kind of interrupts the sculpt a little bit, but not that bad. And he has his tail here that is also painted with its spikes as well. Underside, you can see we got robot parts, and that is it. So he gets our last two weapons, this thing and this sword. This sword is actually what Snarl originally came with, and it's why he has this little slot here in the top. But the instructions say to actually use this slot here on his chest for the sword because it's much smaller. It's really tight though. I don't love doing that. That's probably the last time I'm ever doing that. And then the, I'm going to call this like a lance or something. It's a little off center, but you know, that's what it is. Has a tab here that you can then put into this slot there in the center. So that is how he stores his weapons. Not my favorite. I tend to just leave the weapons off to the side in dinosaur mode. Not a big fan of that, but I am a big fan of rats. Yes, I'm a big fan of rats. I'm also a big fan of transformations, so let's do his real quick. Doryu's transformation is really cool. I think he actually has the most complex transformation of the set. So you want to take the back here and untab it, and then you can kind of pull the front section out like this. The front will split, and then the sides of the head are going to fold in and kind of click into place on the inside of the legs. That will then let you kind of extend his legs out like this. The rear legs untab, and you just fold the elbows down to make his arms. Then you can split this top section. It's on a peg. Split it out to the side like this and rotate his head around. And there you have Doryu in his robot mode. And he has a really good looking robot mode. I think this is the one of the set that is kind of the least encumbered by having to also be a combiner piece. He overall just kind of looks like a really good little robot man. And not even really any kibble at all. He has, you know, the spines on his back, but that's it. He doesn't really look like anything. This hinge is the only indicator that he's doing anything except being a little core dino man. So here is his head sculpt. Again, it's really well painted. You get a lot of paint on this set overall. The Decepticon logo gets kind of washed out because it's purple on blue, but it looks really good. Silver there on his waist and hands, and some dark, kind of like some really dark gray there on his toes. His articulation is also pretty good, but not quite as good as Yokuryu, unfortunately. So his head is on a swivel, it can rotate. Shoulders are on ball joints. They are uninhibited. They can only move out that far. He has an elbow joint, which is great, but no swivel at all in his arm. which is a little disappointing after seeing Yoku-Ryu have like mushroom peg swivels in him. He does have a waist rotation. He does have hips that can kick forward and back and out to the side. Again, no thigh cut, even though Yoku-Ryu had mushroom peg thigh swivels. This guy doesn't have them. His knees can bend that far, which is really good. It does make it a little difficult to get him into super dynamic poses, though, when he doesn't have any swivels. He does also have butterfly joints, if you want to use that. I've used those in poses from time to time, but without any swivels, it's a little difficult to actually get him into more dynamic poses. So let me see if I can get him standing like that, and we'll get his weapons out. So again, he has the sword, which we'll do in this hand here. Little sword just there, as well as this longer lance that he unfortunately can only hold at the very tip of the handle. But, you know, that's pretty cool. Like I said, these guys are pretty neat little guys, and I think this guy is probably second best overall of the set, right behind Yoku-Ryu. That lack of swivels just really kind of hampers it, but the transformation is really fun, and I like the look and the sculpt. So let's get them all back in here, and I want to do a couple quick comparisons before we get into the real fun stuff. So we're getting a nice group shot here before we do some more just, you know, comparisons. Overall, as a set of 6, I think these are awesome. I really like these figures. They have a ton of personality, and having the addition of the weapons really helps over the DINOKING set. I think it just gives you so many more posing options and so much more fun you can really do with these. It's just great. I really am enjoying, as individual figures, really liking them. Really liking them, and I don't regret it at all so far. So let's grab a few fun comparisons here. So, of course, we have to start with our rat friend from the rest of the comparisons, Rat Trap. You can see these guys are actually a little taller than Rat Trap is. Overall, you can see Yoku-Ryu is standing at around head height with him, and he's crouched over a little bit. So they're all a little bit taller than Rat Trap, who I've considered, you know, average core size. And I threw Vector Prime in there just because, you know, we got Age of the Primes coming up, and, you know, he's the only one I've got so far. But just so you can see, compared to a Voyager, how big these guys are. Of course, they are core size. They're not as big as they would be in the show, but these guys are going for like the more toy scale of them being quite a bit smaller. So that's just to give you an idea of, you know, more normal figure with another core as well. Am I really going to grab the 2 big guys off the shelf? I think we should, shouldn't we? All right, I'll be right back. It wouldn't be a victory review unless I brought out our 2 HasLabs, would it? So obviously these guys don't scale perfectly with these 2. They're going to be quite a bit smaller because they're more core scale, but it's nice just to kind of see them next to each other and see our Japanese G1 cast grow even more, and it's going to be even more by next year when we get Leo Kaiser. Yes, I have backed Leo Kaiser. Yes, I am very excited for it, especially just getting him. He's going to be the same size as these 2, and it's going to be awesome. So getting more victory stuff, I'm always going to be happy about, and so yeah, not a great comparison because, again, they're not meant to scale with each other, but just seeing them next to each other kind of makes me happy a little bit. So yeah, but we can make them a little bigger. Let's get them combined up. So I figure we should start from the bottom and work our way up. So we're going to take a look at Go-Ryu and Do-Ryu first as our 2 leg boys. We will start with Go-Ryu. So you want to take out his weapon here. I put his club in a little clump. We'll take a look at the accessories in a little bit, but you want this tail piece. For him, you want to take his arms and from robot mode position, just kind of pull them in together in front of his chest, and they will tab together in 2 places, at the shoulder and right there at the swivel. And then you can take them, and there is this tab here that'll go into the crotch, so just tab that in just like that. You can take his kibble here and bring it up and over, and then you can take this peg and fold it up. His legs will peg together, and you will bring them up just like for Dino mode, like that. And the way that the kibble here is going to work is, so this piece will just go over the head. This side you want to take and just kind of rotate back like this. And this side has a little tab that will go into that notch there, like that. And the dino head will sit right there in front. And you take the tail piece and it stores back here into these two posts, just like that. For Doryu, you want to take his head, rotate it around, fold in the tail pieces, take his arms and fold them forward. And for these, I find it's easiest to actually clip them into the crotch first, like this, and then they'll tab in at the shoulder at the top like that. You're going to take this back panel, untab it, and take this peg and flip it up like this. His legs will tab together and then fold up, and these two posts will go into those two slots there, like that. And then you can take this piece and you can see two posts and two ports. You peg that in at the front, just like that. And on DINOKING, or on Volcanicus, that's just where the legs would end. But for these guys, we do have extra feet pieces. And you can see they have these sloped pieces. They are different, as you can see. So they are specific, left and right. And you can tell which is left and right by which side the peg is on. And so all these really have to do is there is just a slot there in the bottom of the crotch that this will sit and tab into. Your mileage may vary on how tight these are. I've seen some reviews where they are just like loosey-goosey. Mine are fairly solid. Not the tightest ever, but they're pretty good. So you can just take this and peg it in. Am I getting that lined up? Ah, there we go. Peg the foot on just like that. And there are going to be our combiner legs. Our arms are going to be Yokuryu and Gairyu. Sorry, a lot of these names are so similar. I'm going to take them and their hand pieces. We'll do Yokuryu first. So you just take his head and fold it up like this. Instructions tell you to leave these folded up, but I actually prefer how they look folded out, because it reminds me of the Fans Project version. And then just kind of point them straight out to the side like this. Take the elbows and bend them and rotate them to the back. And then there are little tabs here under his arms that will just kind of peg into his upper arms like this. The lower arms don't go anywhere. They just kind of sit there. Take the dinosaur head, flip it up like this. Flip out his peg. You can take his legs and peg them together. And then you just want to rotate them forward like that, so that the hollow piece is facing you. And you can take his hand piece and just rotate the hand. The original hand pieces from Volcanicus aren't included. We just get these new pieces. And the way this is going to work is there's two slots here for those two tabs. And then these little grooves will just kind of sit over that. This doesn't hold on the best for me. I find that moving this around, like trying to move the arm around, this doesn't hold on as good as it could. Neither does this one, but it does fill in all that gap and it does look quite a bit better. Plus you get hand articulation, so that is quite nice. For Dairyu, take his legs, tab them together, take his arms and just pull them forward in front of his chest, peg them together, flip the head up. You can see that the underside of his front legs are kind of hollowed out, and that's so they can sit over his hips. So you just kind of pull them down like that to kind of make the arm flow a little bit. And then you can flip down his peg right there. You can take his fist and you can see a groove in the back and a slot in the front for a tab and just a slot. So just tab that on like that. And here you have Doryu and Yokuryu in their arm modes. Last up is Kakuryu and Rairyu, who form the torso. So you also are going to need the tail piece from Kakuryu, and we'll just take the head out of here. So pull that out, and I'll take a look at the head sculpt real quick now, so we don't have to later. Very good head sculpt, very nicely painted. It is a brand new head as well. Really like it. Love that blue and that silver with the red eyes. So we have the head, and we have this extra tail piece. So we'll start with Ryu here. For him, all you need to do is rotate his arms straight up like this. Take his legs, separate them out, and rotate them out to the side this way. Then you can take the leg and bring it up, and you can see there's a notch there, right there, that this tab will go into. So you can just kind of tab this in, get it lined up, and get it tabbed in like that. And there you have a thigh. So rotate this, bring it up, and tab that in. And that is going to make his thighs. And that's why his legs were kind of built so weird, is because of that. And it does just mean his robot legs kind of end up being kibble on the sides, but it's not a big deal. And then you can take this piece, and you can use that peg there to peg into his chest, like that. That's going to help kind of tie together the mode. And then you can take his arms and just pull them out to the side. Now we need Kakuryu. Take his arms, bring them out, and rotate them so that the pegs are on top. Make sure this back is spread open. You're going to flip closed the mouth, tab his legs together, and pull the dinosaur legs around. Then you can fold these up like this, pull them straight back, and then the legs here have a little tab on them that will go into this slot here. So bring this in, tab it into place. And then you can take the combiner head, peg it into this port on top like this, and we can now combine them together. So Kakuryu is going to have 3 pegs, 1, 2, 3, and we have 3 ports on top of here. These back 2 next to his head, and then this very front one. So you're just going to drop this down with Ryu's head going into that cavity there, and this is going to peg together. That pegs together really solidly, but we actually have even more connection here with the arms having these ports on the inside that will peg in right there onto the arms there. So peg them together, and then there's little pegs on the back of these panels that are supposed to peg into the back of the fists. They don't work that well, but you don't need that extra bit of locking. You just kind of get them into position and hold them there. And so there is Dino King's torso. Oh, and then I like to take these back legs and bring them down. Forgot about that. Now there's the torso. So let's get them combined up. So here we have Dino King all combined up, and oh yeah, this is what you were buying this set for. This honestly looks really cool. There's a few different fixes here that make this look way better than Volcanicus in my opinion. The first of which, of course, I've been talking about it the whole video, the colors. All of these different colors work really well together, and I've always loved Dino King's color scheme in general, but I think it just improves this mold so much and makes it look so much more dynamic. The other improvement is the new fists that can actually rotate around, and the feet. Having the feet there, even though they are pretty small, make his legs look so much less stumpy. It makes him look a lot taller, even though he's not actually that much taller. It just fixes his proportions quite a bit from having the feet there. And the feet even have articulation that we'll see in a little bit. Before we do articulation, I do want to do his weapons first, because all of this stuff can combine into combiner weapons. So we'll do that real quick. First off, the 2 gun pieces, very simply, the smaller one just pegs into this peg on the front like that. And there you have the combined mode gun. The rest of these form Dino King's axe, his most iconic weapon. So you can take the lance here, bring this piece down, and that gives you some room to take this connector piece. And you want the bigger port facing outward. Peg it in right here in the front. You can take the sword and tab it in on top to just kind of form some decoration. The blade will peg into the front like this, and then you take the club and peg it in underneath to extend the handle, forming a really nice combined mode axe that's quite large and is just really cool. Having him pose with these weapons is really sweet. These are simply just 5mm ports that go into his hands, so you can peg his gun in right there and give him his axe in his other hand like this. And overall, I think honestly that just like completes his look. Really, it looks sick. You could also, if you wanted to, take this piece out, peg this onto this part, and then plug in the bottom part if you wanted him holding it a bit lower. That is also an option because his hand does go all the way through. This is just my preference. This is how I always think of Dino King holding his axe. And yeah, I really like this. I think it looks awesome. And I guess we can take a quick look a bit closer here. Again, we already looked at that head sculpt, but I think it looks really good. And all of this detail is detail we saw before, just with in a different context now. The legs are a little messy, especially Goryu here. I'm not a huge fan of the way that the kibble is managed here. There are a couple options if you want to fan mode it a little bit. This is just how the instructions say to do it. And again, those feet are helping so much, as well as his new fist pieces as well. I just love how this looks. I think it looks really cool. His articulation is pretty simple for a combiner, but it's quite good because this guy's not that heavy. He's quite small and he's not very heavy, so you can actually make use out of the posability and actually get him in some cool poses. So his head can rotate because it is just on a peg. Shoulders are also on pegs, so they can rotate. Not full 360 though. They can only go around so much. It just, depends on the articulation. Shoulders can move out to the side as well. They both have bicep swivels. On Dairyu here, or Gairyu, sorry, I keep saying Dairyu. It's a little bit difficult to get access to it because you kind of have to move stuff out of the way, but he does have a bicep swivel. It makes his arm really fat. That's why I kind of leave it like this. When you have it kind of facing forward so the elbow faces the right way, it makes his arm, he can't put his arm down the rest of the way, so I leave it like this unless it's in a pose, but it can rotate. He does have a double jointed elbow, which is nice, and the fist here can rotate and move up and down on this hinge. So you do have quite a bit of articulation there, and the other arm is exactly the same articulation. You got all those same joints, including the same wrist articulation with, a double jointed elbow as well. Just be careful with those hands popping off. He does have a waist swivel that only gets hindered by this kibble that doesn't have any room to move out of the way anymore, but you get most of a rotation, which is nice. The hips are fairly solid. They can kick forward about that far. They can kick back that far, out to the side a decent amount. He technically has a thigh swivel up here. If you want to untab this piece, it can rotate out like that, which can be useful if the kibble gets in the way of his knee articulation here, because it's just pegged in, he does also have a swivel at the knee and a bend at the knee that moves the kibble. Bend at the knee that goes a little under 90 degrees, and he even has dedicated ankle articulation, a nice ankle pivot. It's not the deepest out there, but it's quite good. And again, I think you can get really good poses out of this figure in his combined mode, just due to just having those joints. And again, he's not very light. The weight distribution is pretty good, so he is actually capable of holding these poses as well. This isn't the best pose ever, but he can do stuff. He can do poses, which is quite cool for a combiner. And having a small scale combiner like this that feels this solid and is able to pull off poses, it's really nice. It's a nice set. We'll do our big comparisons again. I'm just gonna drop them in here. I'm not gonna cut for this. Let's get that Saurus in as well. My. Okay. Yeah. Clearly, he's not in scale. I believe in the show Dino-King was actually the same size as these two. He's not in scale with them, but again, just like with the individual modes, I think he looks quite good. Let's give him his best shot here so we can see exactly how tall he is. Get him in a more straight pose there. Yeah, so he's not very tall. He doesn't really even come up to their waists, unfortunately. But I honestly think the fun factor kind of outweighs the scale of it for me personally. I just really like how this set, looks. And at its size, I think you get advantages over it being in scale. And I'll bring in as well Vector Prime here so we can see Vector Prime next to him and the rat as well. And you can see how much bigger he gets compared to a standard core class figure. If you remember, they were about the same size. Now he is quite large. He's actually standing above Vector Prime here. He's, about Voyager height in combined mode, which is just a really fun size for a combiner. We don't get a lot of this scale combiners in the main line, but I think it's really cool, actually. And like I said, this set is really fun to mess with. I didn't really want to do this comparison, but we're going to do it just for the sake of it so you guys can see another option for a bigger Dino King. I'll be right back. So if you don't recognize this, this is the Fans Project Dino King from way back when Fans Project was still active. This is a third-party set that I find to be a bit more in scale with the HasLabs. You can see quite a bit larger. I still would probably recommend this guy over this one, though, because this one's far more expensive, for one thing. It's much more expensive, and it's very rickety. I don't like bringing this guy down from the shelf for any kind of comparisons or anything. It's why I didn't do comparisons with him throughout the whole video. He's very rickety. Fans Project plastic, in a lot of times, could feel very fragile, so he's not a set I like playing with very much. He kind of stays in combined mode on the shelf for me, and I'm bringing him down here just so you can get a special look at what he looks like with the Generations one and how he scales with Deathsaurus, because I don't think I did that comparison in Deathsaurus's review. If I did, I can't remember, I'm sorry. But yeah, so this is your other option if you want a more in-scale Dino King. But between the two, I definitely would more lean towards the Generations one for a recommendation, just because this guy's so rickety feeling and just not very fun compared to this guy. This guy's super fun. This guy's more for display. I also think this guy just looks better with the Generations ones in terms of like colors and general detail. This guy's much darker and more detailed. But let me know in the comments what you guys actually think about these. If you prefer one or the other, if you kind of like this one better. I want to hear from you guys. Which Dino King are you preferring? Because now we actually have multiple options. For a very long time, this guy was the only option. Now we have more than one. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. But I'm going to clear the table and we'll get to some final thoughts here. So final thoughts on the Legacy United Dino King. If my plan stayed the same, I probably clickbaited the thumbnail saying like best of 2024 or something like that. But is this guy actually the best release of 2024? I don't think so. But I can confidently say that he's my favorite. This is the one figure I got in 2024 that I have not been able to put down. If the schedule's right, this video is going up in March of 2025. And I still have not been able to put this guy down. He's so much fun to just flip back and forth between the smaller guys with their individual modes, as well as having a combined mode that you can actually pose around a little bit. And it's like almost a desk toy combiner, I feel like. It's just super fun. That's really what I can say. He's very fun. Now, is he worth the money? Because this guy is still in stock on Hasbro Pulse, last I checked. This guy's around $80 for the box set, which is pretty expensive. That's not a cheap figure at all. But I really do think that you're getting your money's worth out of this. You're getting 6 core class figures, which I believe are between 10 and 15. I'm not sure exactly how much they cost, but assuming they cost like 10 or 11, that's $60. You're getting more paint as well as the new accessories that really improve this figure over Volcanicus, which would be the most direct comparison. I skipped out on Volcanicus knowing that this set was going to come out, so I actually waited quite a bit to experience this mold, and I really can't say I regret waiting. I think this is a really fun set, and I honestly give it the highest recommendations I can. Yes, it's a little bit expensive. Yes, it does have some flaws, but it's also just an extremely fun set that I think is well worth your time and money. So sorry about not having a video out in February. Stuff happens, but we got out 2 videos in March, so hopefully that makes up for it a little bit. But if you enjoyed this video and the previous one, leave a like and a comment. Let me know what you think of Dino King. Had you heard of this character before the box set came out? Because I knew about him since I was a kid, because I watched a lot of Japanese G1 as a kid. But I know this is a bit of a lesser known set of characters compared to some of the other Victory guys. So Let me know what you think of this set, and also compared to the Fans Project set in the HasLabs. And are you hoping for more victory? And have you backed Leo Kaiser? I definitely want to know what you guys think about that. So there's a lot of stuff we can talk about in the comments, and I'll make sure to reply if anybody has any interesting things to say. While you're down there, leave a like on the video and subscribe and click that notification bell if you want to see more videos from me in the future. But that's been it. I've been Anovia, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.